Located 4.5 miles south of Mapleton, Minnesota, Daly Park is a county campground located on the east side of Lura Lake. For generations, Lura Lake has been a scenic stop for indigenous populations and early explorers, and for the past several decades, a modern camp for local and national visitors. Today, we'll visit Daly Park and look back at its rich history. In a land of 10,000 lakes, Lura Lake is not the largest or deepest, but it is unique in its geography and history. Geographically, it is an endorheic lake, which means that it has no inlet or outlet, like most other lakes. Although the Maple River comes near, the lake sits on a slight hill and is fed by precipitation and underground springs. Historically, Lura Lake was known as Tawapa Tankian by the local Dakota people, as recorded by botanist Carl Geyer on Joseph Nicollet's 1838 scientific expedition. The Nicollet expedition came through present-day Blue Earth County on 2 separate trips, and his indigenous guides came from Chief Sleepy Eye's Sisseton Band and also Faribault's Metawakiton Band. Considering the seasonal patterns of the Oceti-Sakowin people, any of the 7 council fires could have used the lake as a temporary camp. According to Carl Geyer, Tawapa Tankian was noted for its crooked water lily roots, which was prized by the Dakota for its meditative qualities. For explorer Joseph Nicollet, he camped at almost the exact spot where Daly Park is located today. You can see on his 1838 map how Nicollet also noted its endorheic qualities. A generation after Nicollet, settlement opened in the territory, and for a few years, the town of Mapleton existed at Lura Lake before the railroad pulled residents to its current location. Somewhere between Nicollet and early explorers, Lura Lake acquired its own mysterious name. According to Warren Upham's Minnesota Geographical Names, the name Lura was given because the word Lura was carved on a tree. But who carved it? Joseph Nicollet? A random fur trader? And what does it mean exactly? According to the Urban Dictionary, Lura is a word for beauty and absolute perfection. A catharsis. Lura is what makes your tummy fill with butterflies. That's nice and very fitting, but it's unlikely that early settlers used the Urban Dictionary. If the pioneer with a pocket knife was Norwegian, Lura is a word for bay, as evidenced in a farmstead in Rogaland named Lura. In Swedish and Finnish, Lura is a warning that something dangerous is lying in wait. However, if our pioneer vandal happened to be German, the word Lura is a reference to an alluring temptress from the story of Lorelei, who'd lure fishermen to their deaths with her song. Harold Hammaker should have heeded the warning carved on the tree, for at a 4th of July celebration, he almost drowned. Luckily for Harold, Jimmy Howison was nearby, and despite almost being pulled under, Howison rescued the drowning man, and in the process, brought national attention to himself and our little vacation spot when he received the Carnegie Hero Fund engraved medallion. The namesake of Daly Park comes from the Daly family, one of the original homesteaders on the lake.
Moses Harriman, he was out here before homesteading even. So he lived on that part. And then his daughter and I think it'd be WG, which would be my great-grandfather, married Moses' daughter. And so the South Quarter, we do have the homestead papers on that. We do not have the homestead papers on the North Quarter and the park and so forth. But my great-grandpa, WG, was a Civil War vet. And the Civil War vets were able to come back and they purchased land from the United States, either that or the railroad. I think it came from the United States. I know the homestead papers for the South Quarter was signed by U.S. Grant. Well, it started back in 1968 is when Dad turned it over to the county. There was a lot of community talk about it. Some of the principals in the community were involved. Dr. Lester, Bob King, he was, Lester Anderson was a county commissioner at the time, and Lester really helped gather the nominal fee that it took. And it was Dad's intent to see this remain as a park or trees and not bulldoze it down and leave it. The park itself had a history of it being a park or back in the 20s. And they had, at that time, there were on the west bank of the lake, there were cabins. There's still some remnants of that out there. And there was a concession stand built at the time. And it was the open part where, I say where all the weeds are now, but the thistles and so forth, that used to be a baseball field by the big oak tree. Yeah. And then we had the dirty 30s. The lake went dry. Everybody packed up and went back, and then nothing happened until it became a cow pasture. Dad was born on the farm here, which now consists of 361 acres. Well, in my years growing up on the farm here, we would come down to the park or the pasture at the time, and we'd spend a lot of nights and so forth. But the east bay of the lake went dry, and at that time, Harold Healy, Harold was the banker in town, and he had a herd of Hereford cattle, and so Dad rented the pasture to Harold. He and the Stevens family, they were over working for Harold and gradually began owners of the Healy farm over there. Well, as far as fishing, bullheads were they were the walleye of the South, I think. We'd have lots of people come up from Iowa to go bullhead fishing. The lake is a shallow lake, and there was pockets deep enough where they wouldn't winter kill, but some springs you'd see where the fish had died off and floated up on the shore. But in this 52 or 50, going back to that, we were able to go out across the East Bay here, and you'd see a crack in the mud, and you'd dig down, and you could, there was a fence post that my grandpa had put in the dirty 30s, or whoever was renting the pasture. I'm going to say about 77, 78 is when we put a dike along the east edge here, you know, to hold the water in. And they did some work on the road over by Phelps's on the west side of the lake. Many people don't know that this lake sets on a hill. It's about a 1-to-1 ratio, watershed to lake area. So it's kind of an anomaly, you know, that you wouldn't recognize. So you could drain the lake in any direction you wanted. Oh, I think the park adds so much to the lake, you know, as I see it. It was never really a nice body of water like it's been in about the time the people took over the park. You know, that was when the water began to rise. When Mom and Dad used to have their stand open down here, they'd have egg coffee. They'd make egg coffee, and Dad would go over to the old Mapleton where the flowing well was, and that's where he'd get the water. He'd carry the water back from the old Maple.
Even though the old pasture has been updated to be a modern park, Bill Daly can still recall where some of the old landmarks were found.
They were little fire pits for people to grill on or whatever, and they were probably built back in the 20s, you know, when the park was going good. Yeah.
So that's the history of Daly Park. Let's introduce you to its present.
My role is to, from the Blue Earth County perspective, to do the mowing, the weed eating, keep up the grounds, keep it tidy. But there's a lot more to the job than that. People management, you know, there's people, all different types of personalities, and when it's hot like this especially, things happen. So you just de-escalate people. But my philosophy is I like to be proactive and prevent all of that. So I like to keep the grounds up and make sure people's needs are met. They know who I am, I know who they are. I stay out of their space unless I need to get in there, but it's very family oriented out here now. Well, we have 60-some electric sites, so those are usually full. And then the camping, the non-electric for tenting can maybe be half full. So it's a lot of people, but it's spread out along the lake, so there's a lot of space. Anywhere that you go, you can be with people. And then I tell others that if you need some space or alone time, there's plenty of stretches in between where you can find that space with the trail. Well, out at Daly Park, we have 3 bathhouses, which is huge, several playgrounds. We have a disc golf course, 9-hole disc golf course. There's the trail system that I've connected now, so all the trails connect. This year's a little different with the flooding, but they are still connected. And then the famous island where the entrance to the half-mile trails out there. There's a volleyball court, horseshoes. But mainly it's quiet family time, a time to put down the phones. Kids come out and they're not doing this as much. And they're playing. It's all paved out here, so anything with wheels, I suggest bringing. Well, the locals are very proud of it. They are very proud of it, and they are kind of my eyes and ears out here. They like to see it kept up, and they love it. They remember camping out here with the cows and tenting. And the ones that come through, I just had one a couple weeks ago that came through. She started in Vermont to Florida and been on the road since April. She said it's one of the nicest parks she's ever seen. It's definitely her favorite. And me personally, I think it's a place to come and heal. Many people come out here just to say, hey Jen, can I park the car and look at the lake? I need some time alone. I just need to go for walks. They're crying. So it's a very special place. I think it's God's country. That's my opinion.
This video is brought to you by the Mapleton Area Foundation, enhancing the Mapleton area by supporting programs like this.